He's blessed, black, and highly favored. If that line sounds familiar, it's probably because you heard it before. It's from acclaimed radio host and TV host Charlamagne Tha God. And in a minute, we'll be diving into his career journey, looking at how he's developing his own podcast network and thinking about his media empire. All that and more, a special conversation coming up at the Nasdaq. Hello, everyone. This is Jabari Young, senior writer at Forbes, and I'm at the Nasdaq MarketSite. And I have a special guest joined by Leonard McKelvey, better known as Charlamagne Tha God, nationally syndicated radio host of The Breakfast Club, podcast network owner, author, entrepreneur, all those type things. Soon to be billionaire.
If that's God's will, that's God's will.
I love it, man. I love it. And first of all, thanks so much for coming up, man. I know you're very busy. Do your morning radio show every single morning, man, during the weekdays, man. So I appreciate the time.
Thank you for having me, Jabari.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
Absolutely, man. Listen, before we talk business and your career journey, I got to ask you, man, how's fatherhood? How's the girls doing?
Man, I mean, fatherhood, you know, as Gucci Man said recently on Breakfast Club, fatherhood is the only hood that matters.
That's right.
You know, like it's literally the only hood that matters, man. That's what gives me a real sense of purpose. You know, that's what makes me be intentional about everything that I do.
Yeah.
You know, really everything that I say. Just I think that, you know, kids give you a certain reason for breathing that you don't quite understand until you have them. If you're a real present father. Like there's a lot of people just out here being sperm donors and just, you know, daddies having kids. But if you are an actual father who is in your kid's life and you wake up with your kids and go to sleep with your kids every day, it's a whole different level of a purpose.
Yeah, nothing better, man. I have a 12-year-old daughter, so I understand like that love. Like it's your first man that she's ever gonna love in her life.
Right.
So you got to play. It's very important.
I got 4 of them. I got
no, how is it for you, man? A girl.
I got 17, 10, 7, and 4.
Yeah.
And you know, each one of them has their own different personalities. Each one of them teaches you something different about yourself. You realize it's not a one-size-fits-all type of thing. Like, you know, the way you communicate with this one is not the way you're going to communicate with the other ones. And, you know, you got to find a way to, you know, love all of them equally without making, you know, one of them feel isolated.
Yeah.
You know, that's the question I get in the house all the time. Who's your favorite? Like, whoa. Well,
No.
I'm never supposed to reveal that answer.
No, absolutely not. Well, you say your wife just off of like, you should just say your wife, right? That's the favorite.
Yeah, you should.
Do you like, you know, mine's she got her phone. She got her first phone now, so I haven't seen her since, right? She's just on her own, on her phone. How do you deal
How old
with
is she again?
She's 12. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, see, I got a 17-year-old, so she just got a car.
That's what I'm saying. How do you deal with it?
She just got a car.
Oh, man.
And I literally just said in the house, I said, man, we're approaching that time in our lives where our oldest has her independence. So she's at work, she's at her internship, she's at cheerleading, she's at friends' house, she's at football games, and I'm kind of letting it be because I'm preparing myself for when she goes off, you know, to college. Because, you know, I think I read a statistic that said like 70 or 80% of all the time you spend with your kids is
Before 18.
From the age of birth to 18. So I guess that's where we are right now.
And that's scary for me and you. You got 1 year left. I got 6, right? So it's like, wait.
1 year on this one.
Yeah, right? Well, you got some other ones too. Well,
That's
do you
right.
want any more? You want any more kids?
No. My wife been wanting me to get a vasectomy a long time ago.
No, listen, you're done then. Done.
I went to go get the consultation for the vasectomy, but I ended up with a prostate exam too, so I kind of got scared after that.
No more, man. I love it. Your soundtrack to 2025, man. Like, what's keeping Charlamagne Tha God positive and motivated and creative, especially all that's going on in the world?
Music-wise or just?
Music-wise, yeah.
Man, 2025, it's a lot of different things. Like, you know, I like the Ruben Vincent project that just came out, that produced by him and Ninth Wonder. Ray Vaughn, you know, put out a dope project earlier this year. Jid put out a phenomenal project earlier this year. So yeah, a lot of the youngins, who are rapping with a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
You know, who understand that life is about more than just, you know, the money, the cars, and the hoes, you know? Like you know, that's something that dominated the culture for a long time. But I think the last decade of hip hop, when you got the Kendricks and the J. Coles and, you know, the Wale's and, I even got to throw Drake in there, the Rhapsodies, those individuals set the stage for, you know, the people I just named, the Ray Vaughns and the Ruben Vincents and individuals like that. Glorilla, I think Glorilla's phenomenal. So I just think that, you know, there's people out here that are rapping about things of socially redeeming value and substance. And it's not that hard to find if you really got your ears open.
Yeah, when we were October, I know you said Life is Beautiful, Larry June and 2 Chainz.
Oh, yes, that's another one. Damn.
I've been listening to
Hell
that.
yeah. Larry June and 2 Chainz definitely got one this year.
That's a good project.
Absolutely.
Man. Say you walk into a 5th grade class, right? And they say, well, what is it that you do, Charlamagne? Like, what do you tell these 5th graders?
I tell them media.
Yeah.
I tell them media. When they ask me what media is, I say, radio, television, YouTube, right? Because we live in an era now, it's not about, what you do, it's about, how you meet people where they are.
That's right.
So yeah, I do radio every day, but then you take that radio program and we, put it out as a daily podcast. We put it out, as a YouTube broadcast. We put it out, as social media clips. And I mean, me being a radio personality, I'm probably the only person that still uses that term and other people in radio, because I'll get introduced as a podcaster all day long. I'll be walking the street, like, I enjoy your podcast. I don't know whether they're talking about Breakfast Club or Brilliant Idiots, because, Breakfast Club is a radio show.
Yeah.
And I started to say technically, but no, it's a radio show. But, we just meet people where they are nowadays. Back in the day, they said, if you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
No, nowadays you got to build it and meet people where they are.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I got to hire a social media person now, man. They got to, do the clicks and stuff and then chop up the videos and all that stuff.
You got to do that. You got to do that. We're on in the morning with Breakfast Club, and we're live on Instagram. We're live on YouTube. We're live on Twitch. Like, you really got to meet people, where they are.
Yeah, most definitely. So another student raised their hand and it says, well, what is the name Charlamagne? Where does that come from? Why Charlamagne Tha God? What do you tell this 5th grader on how you develop and got your name?
5th grader, I would have to PG it up for a 5th grader, but it came from when I was growing up in Moncks Corner, South Carolina,
right.
And I was selling crack, to be totally honest, right? And I used to always say my name was Charles.
Or Charlie.
Or Charlie, right? And then, we used to have a crew called the infamous Buddha Head, so all of us took names of, marijuana. So I was Charlie Chronic, somebody else was Bobby Buddha, somebody else was Mikey Marijuana, Ichabodism, stupid stuff like that. And so I was sitting in history class, sitting in night school, reading out of a history book, and I saw that, Charlemagne was French for Charles the Great. And I was just like, oh, that's a fly name right there. And then I saw that, he was a emperor who went about spreading religion and education. And I was like, okay, well, he's doing something with intention, right? And then as I got a little older, I started reading about the Haitian general, Charlemagne. And so I just took the name because I thought it was cool, bro.
Yeah.
Like, I just looked at it and I was like, yo, that's gonna look really dope on a marquee one day. Because, I also had rap dreams as well. And so that's how I became Charlamagne. And then I was studying the 5% teachings. And, 5% teachings, they teach you that, God is a Greek word derived from the Aramaic words guma, azdabar, which means wisdom, strength, and beauty. And so I was just like, oh, Charlamagne the God, which really don't make no sense because it's Charlamagne the Great, the God.
Yeah.
But, I was 17 and getting high all the time.
You didn't get no flack for that, the God part of it, right?
Never.
No?
Like literally never in my whole existence, because, you'll have people who'll be like, oh, that's blasphemous. I'm not saying I'm the God. I even spell it T-H-A to this day. You know what I mean? I feel like, I'm taking the name of my Father. Genesis chapter 1, verse 26 says, God created man in his image according to his likeness.
That's right.
So, when you look in the mirror and you look at your reflection, you should see, the image of God.
You sit here in 2025, man, you feel successful at all? Man, you driving past your billboards and you see your face everywhere and, you feel successful as we sit here today?
I feel successful, but not because of any of those reasons. I feel successful because, like, my mom set me free a long time ago. Like, I'm talking about a long time ago, maybe like 11, 12 years ago. I remember her saying that, I've accomplished more than anybody in my family, like people's wildest dreams, right? And she was like, but just be happy to be making a living. And literally, that's always been my mindset. Like, I'm just happy to be, making a living. And I'm at the point right now where I feel like if what I build only benefits me, it's not big enough. So the fact that I'm able to, provide opportunities for a whole lot of other people, like a whole lot of other individuals, to create these different, companies and, institutions that can hire staffs and, we're able to, assist other creators and, fulfilling their dreams and getting money. Like, that to me is what makes me feel, successful. It's not anything necessarily that I see with myself. Like, oh, that's me on the billboard. Like, nah.
It's like the Clarence Avon in you.
Oh my God, that's one of my idols. Like, that's one of my hugest inspirations. Like, I have 4 entertainment, inspirations. It's Clarence Avant, It's Sean Jay-Z Carter. It's a radio personality by the name of P.D. Green. They made a movie about him starring Don Cheadle. And Arsenio Hall, whose book I'm publishing next year.
Wow.
I'm publishing his memoir
Man.
next year through my book imprint, Black Privilege Publishing, Simon & Schuster. So
yeah,
you know, I got the opportunity to, you know, spend some time with Clarence Avant and, you know, have some conversations with Clarence Avant. And
before he died, God bless his life, what's the biggest thing that you might have learned from him, taken away, maybe in those conversations that people didn't hear?
That you don't have to conform.
Yeah.
Like you can really, you know, show up, you know, as yourself in every single room that you're in, because, you know, his intentions were always pure, and his intentions were never about, what he wanted was never about him. Like literally, when I say this, you know, if I build something that only benefits me, it's not big enough. Like he's the epitome of that. Like, you know, he became Clarence Avant because he was always pouring into other people's cups, and by him pouring into other people's cups, people were always pouring into him. He wasn't even the person that wanted the spotlight in any way, shape, or form. And, you know, for him to be the size he was, because he wasn't a big guy, but he was the biggest person in the room, right? Just because of how he approached the room. And he always approached the room. I remember the first time I met him, I walked in, and he goes, you know, where's the money, right? But then he went into just a whole conversation about all of these different individuals he had helped. He was telling me about how he didn't even want to do the Netflix documentary, and people want him to write a book, and he doesn't even want to write a book. That's just how, you know, how self-serving, how selfless he was, right? Like he was just about others and about inspiring others and pouring into other people, and that was just a blessing to see.
You're one of the most, again, respected voices in radio. People always compare you, and they, you know, put you on that same, I guess, path as Howard Stern. I know you have your, you know, disagreements with that. You think y'all two different, you know, people. But again, your voice is respected. You know, Vice President, you know, Kamala Harris, when she was running for presidency, she sat down with you. She didn't even sit down with the New Yorker, the New York Times. She sat down with you.
I was just with her.
There you go, right?
In Birmingham, Alabama.
There you go.
Yeah, she's on tour for her book, 107 Days, and I moderated her book event in Birmingham.
And you still with her, right? And so, again, a very respected voice. When you look at America in 2025, as we sit here in fall 2025, what does Charlamagne Tha God see?
Man, that's a broad question. I can tell you how I feel. I feel optimistic. I know a lot of people don't feel that way right now, right? But I feel like, you know, these are the times where, you know, people and really us as a country get to see what it is we actually want to be. Like, we know where we are, we know how we got here, but what do we want to be moving forward? And, you know, they say, you know, building and destroying go hand in hand, right? Like, you know, sometimes you have to destroy something to build it. And I think right now what we've realized is that our government has been a house of cards. Democracy is very, very fragile, and it can be threatened, you know, just like that. So if we really want this country to live up to, you know, what it has always marketed itself as, right? The country of freedom and, you know, liberty and justice for all, then we know moving forward, we got to really live by that creed and put people in office that actually care, you know, to uphold that creed.
Well, I know you don't have your ambitions to be U.S. president. You've said before, you even said, you know, Jon Stewart might be a better, you know, person.
Absolutely. That would be great.
But, I mean, maybe running a campaign like a James Carville or something, like behind the scenes as a whisperer and, you know, something like that?
I would definitely do that.
Yeah?
I mean, I kind of do a little bit of that now. Like, you know, it's a lot of people that call me and they'll ask me exactly what you just asked me right then and there. And, you know, I don't take it for granted that, you know, every morning I get to go on the radio and, you know, host the Breakfast Club because, you know, Alice Randall, she's a professor at Vanderbilt. I published her book too called My Black Country. But she said...
Publish my book after this, go ahead.
Let's talk. But she said, the Breakfast Club is America's front porch.
That's right, yeah.
And that's how I feel every day, right? I feel like I'm sitting down having a direct connection with people. This ain't social media. This ain't, you know, potentially bots. I'm actually having conversations with individuals every day. Plus, growing up in Moncks Corner, South Carolina, I'm from a rural area. I go home all the time. I'm always home in the Low Country. You know, you know, I used to own a business in, you know, Newark, New Jersey. That's where a lot of my family is from. Like, you know, I do work with the food bank in Harlem. You know, and in those places, you get to talk to people every day working class people. And I promise you, if some of these politicians would just, start talking to the people they just talk about, they would know what's coming around the corner too. They would know, what a lot of these individuals feel as well. That's why when people talk about, they be like, I'm a political pundit, or I'm a political strategist, or, I'm an intellectual. I'm like, damn, y'all are all of those things, but y'all don't even know what people are feeling. Mm-hmm. And the reason you don't know what people are feeling is because you're too busy in your bubbles, on Capitol Hill, and not having conversations with the actual people that you're just looking at as numbers in data.
Yeah, absolutely, man. What's it like being Charlamagne Tha God?
That's a fantastic question. What do you mean? Like, give me.
Every day, man. What's it like getting up in the morning? Maybe on a Saturday, because you get up in the morning, I believe you say 4:20, you get up, right? 6 o'clock, you're in your meditation.
Yeah.
You got to go to work, right? But what's it like getting up and being you? Maybe on a Saturday morning when you walking your feet in the grass, enjoying nature, right? What's it like being Charlamagne Tha God?
I don't know if I look at myself as Charlamagne Tha God. I think I wake up and I say to myself,
what's it like being Leonard?
Exactly. I'm Leonard McKelvey, and Charlamagne is an extension of that. I think I used, Charlamagne as a mask for a long time, to not have to deal with, some of the issues that Leonard might have been running from. And, you put up the Charlamagne Tha God character as almost a shield to keep everybody from seeing Leonard. But now it's like, Leonard has done the work on himself. So Leonard is not afraid, to show up along with, Charlamagne Tha God. So how did it wake up to be me? I mean, that varies, right? We're human beings. Like, sometimes it feels good. Sometimes it don't. Sometimes you got all the energy in the world. Sometimes, you super tired. The funny thing about being me, I guess, is that we live in this world where it really is like this multiverse. So at any given moment, there's 20 different me's in an algorithm. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can go on social media. I've been doing radio for 27, 28 years now, and I've been doing Breakfast Club for 15. So sometimes people might see something from 15 years ago and think that just happened, yesterday,
Yeah.
right? So it's just like, I find myself constantly having to, answer for Charlamagne, but it's just like, okay, now, which version of me are you talking about? All right, what did you see that you want me to respond to?
Does that annoy you when people see things late and then they report on it like it happened yesterday? Or do you just kind of go with it because we are in this fragmentation environment?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know, right? Because it's not misinformation.
No.
It's just like kind of misappropriated, right? It's not like I didn't say that. It's just that I didn't say that yesterday, right? So if somebody says, I think the headline was something like, man, I said Donald Trump shows me what's politically possible, which is true, right? I'm never accepting any, I can't from a politician ever again, especially a Democrat politician.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear it. Like, you cannot tell me what you can't do when I've watched him just do whatever he wants,
Well, do you have a big positive surprise about the celebrity that you've gained doing radio all these years? A big positive surprise?
No, because I saw how it was for, radio personalities that came before me. Like, radio has always been a medium that produces quote unquote stars. I put that in air quotes because I don't even know what that is in 2025. But, before me, there was the Wendy Williamses and the Angie Martinez's and, like you said, the Howard Sterns and Petey Green, way back in the day. Like, they were, who they were. Like, you look at Big Tigger, you look at Sway, they were on radio, then you would see them on television, hosting your MTV Raps and Rap City and stuff like that. So, it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. Well, how do you, what's the big negative? Is there a negative surprise? Just say positive come negative. Is there a negative surprise?
The negative is that you don't control your own narrative. Like, I don't know if people ever really did, but you definitely don't control your own narrative in 2025 because nobody, listens with the intent to understand ever. They listen with the intent to reply. Because you got to think, I'm a media personality, but everybody else nowadays has their own platforms too.
Yeah.
So everybody is always ready to combat you on whatever it is you said, whatever it is that you did. I can literally tweet out, man, God is good. And somebody will be challenging me on whether God really exists. I don't got time for that. You know what I'm saying? Or they might believe God exists and be like, no, God is actually great. Okay, yeah, he is, absolutely, or she is, whatever. But it'll just always constantly be some type of debate going on. And like I said, you don't control your own narrative nowadays. Like, people really will project how they feel about you on every single thing. And we go back to that algorithm thing. If they've ever seen one thing in the algorithm that they don't like, it's kind of like they brand you that for life. Right. And they won't let you be versatile in this day and age. They think because you do one thing over here, you have no business doing something else over here. And that's just strange to me.
Yeah, they won't let you get outside of your bubble.
Never. Ever.
Yeah. Take me back to that Leonard growing up in Moncks Corner, South Carolina, man. What was that like for you?
Man, it was amazing. It was, it's so interesting that you don't even realize how great it was till you got older, but then you also realize a lot of the things that you went through, wasn't normal, but then you understand why things were the way that they were. Like, I say that our generation was the first generation that had the luxury of healing. Like, our parents and our aunts and uncles and grandparents, they were just trying to survive. So they did the best they could with, what they had. So it's like a lot of those things that, you might look at now and get upset about. It's like, no need to take that personal. They were just humans trying to figure it out the way that you were trying to figure it out. But growing up in Moncks Corner, South Carolina on that dirt road, it was just a simple existence that taught me everything. When you're talking about common sense, when you're talking about, having divine discernment, when you're talking about having like divine instincts, like when you're talking about having a spiritual foundation, I learned all of that in Moncks Corner, South Carolina. Like, my mother was an English teacher, so she was book smart, and she was an individual who, constantly told me to keep my head in the books and to read things that don't pertain to me. And she was a Jehovah's Witness, so I was reading the Watchtowers and the Awakes and my book of Bible stories, all of that, right? But then my pops was the street dude, right? But he also was very good with his hands. He was a construction worker, so he made money doing construction and selling dope. Mm-hmm. And, he had a fish market when we was growing up. So that entrepreneur spirit, like that common sense, keep your head on the swivel, pay attention to what's going on in the world. Like, I can take so many life lessons, from both of them. And growing up in that small town and learning those life lessons from both my parents and other adults that I grew up around, man, that gave me the ability to be able to navigate anywhere on God's green earth, because it was just simple, basic principles that they instilled in me that I'm able to take anywhere, and they're universal,
1998, right? You get to radio system, the first of 7 jobs, right? 98. But that's when it kind of started for you, right? And then you're kind of getting there. You get hired. A brother named George Cook brings you in. Before
George, I was working at Z93 Jams. I was working.
That was your first job?
I was an intern, and then I worked in the promotions department. So the first person to ever give me a paying job in radio was a guy named Haji Jenkins. And I'd be looking for Haji all the time. But I don't know where Haji is. I shout him out. I write about him in my books. But he's one I've never.
He off the radar with Stedman.
Probably. Like, I never hear from Haji, but he's the first person to hire me to have a job in radio, which was promotions. First person to put me on the radio was my man Ron White. He was the music director at the time. I hear from Ron all the time. Yeah. Ron bothers me every goddamn day, but that's my guy though. But he texts me every day. We talk about something every day. So he's the first person to hire me and put me. Well, Haji's the first person to hire me in radio. Ron's the first person to put me on air.
That's right. Yeah. 98 started in 98. Of course, you joined Wendy Williams. After that, a few years after that. Philly, right?
Skipping a lot. But that's why I write books.
For the purposes of time. For
purposes
of time. But 7 jobs in radio, right? That had to be a journey within that. And then obviously you get to the Breakfast Club where your career changes. But as you sit here today, right, you look at your entire trajectory, including the MTV opportunities, the Daily Show, like all of that. How would you describe your career in one word?
Divine.
Divine. Why divine?
Because I come from a place called Moncks Corner, South Carolina, where the population when I was growing up was 7,000 people, raised on a dirt road. It's not like being in New York City where, you look at this backdrop, like there's so much inspiration that you can get, being from New York, there's so many people that you can point to and say, oh man, if I want to do radio, Howard Stern did it at the highest levels, right? And if I wanted to do television, you go, Jon Stewart and The Daily Show did it at the highest levels, right? If I want to, be a rap mogul, you got your, Jay-Z's and your Diddy's. Like, you don't have that growing up in Moncks Corner, South Carolina. So the only thing I ever had was this voice telling me you can transcend your circumstances, and listening to this voice telling me what steps to take. I couldn't explain it to you any other way than that. Like, it literally was always this voice, man. 2 Chainz has a book coming out called The Voice in My Head Is God, right? I'm publishing that too. That comes out.
Oh, that was your book, yeah. We was talking about that. We were at Forbes talking about it. He didn't say it was going to come out on your.
Oh, yeah. I'm publishing that next year. But that's true.
Yeah.
Like, that voice in your head for me has always been God. Like, telling me what's the right things to do and telling me what's the wrong things to do. When I didn't listen, even though he would tell me, don't do that, I got burned for it. But when I would listen to him, it would always lead me where I needed to be. And that's why I always believed in divine misdirection. Like, I got fired from radio 4 times, but every single time I got fired, I ended up in a better position, right? And that's because I needed to be in that space for God to get me to the next place. I never looked at anything like, oh, I'm losing, or this is a misstep, or oh my God, I got fired, woe is me. It was always like, all right, God, what's next? And I'm telling you, man, I've sat in my mother's yard praying, looking up to the sky before I even knew what meditation was. And God is like, all right, I need you to get in your car and go to New York tomorrow. Like, literally. And I'm obedient and listen. And then when I get to New York, I find out why I was supposed to be here, why God told me to do that.
But you had to jump.
You got to jump. When God tells you to move, you got to move.
Yeah.
So when you ask me, what's the one word? Divine.
Yeah. We're going to keep it on the one word thing, right? And when you hear these names, you just tell me one word that comes to mind, right? You talked about people who've had an impact on you, Petey Green being one of them. So I'm going to leave that name out because he was on my list. But one word to describe, these names. And I'll start with Tom Joyner. And I only start with him because of Tom's dedication. I mean, this is a brother who flew from Dallas to Chicago every single day to do his radio show, right? And obviously turns into his own and he sells it eventually. But when you hear the name Tom Joyner, what comes to mind? It's one word.
Man, service.
Service. I love it.
Service.
Yeah.
Because he was so of service to his people.
Yeah.
Let me shut up. You said one word. Okay, I get to going, but yeah, service.
Wendy Williams, somebody that's dear to you.
Fearless.
Fearless.
Yeah, fearless.
Why fearless?
Because for her to be doing what she was doing when she was doing it, being a black woman in New York City in the 90s, regardless of how you felt about what she was doing, that was a very dangerous thing for her to be doing. But she believed in, her craft. And if you've ever been around her, then she believes in her gossip. You know what I'm saying? So she's that person, like you remember in Living Color back in the day when the woman was hanging out the window and she'd be like, I ain't one to gossip, but you ain't heard it from me. Wendy was one to gossip and, you was going to hear it from her and she didn't care if, you heard it from her. And she took a lot because of that. Like, it's not like Wendy, didn't get fired like, I got fired. It's not like artists weren't running up on her, at the radio station, but she kept being her. And it kept being her all the way to even daytime television, and then kept being her on daytime TV. It takes a level of fearlessness to do that.
Continue to do it, yeah. Star and Buck Wild as a unit. And Miss Jones, too, as a unit.
Groundbreaking.
Larry King.
Why?
That's right, because he always used to tell you that question.
That's what he told me.
That's why.
He told me, he said, the best question you can always ask is why.
Yeah.
And I responded to him saying why.
and he can go on and on and on.
But what he said is true because there's always a why. He was like, people will say something, and then when you just simply ask them why, they got to unpack, what they just said.
Yeah. Kathy Hughes.
Man, pioneer.
Combat Jack.
Oh man, friend.
Howard Stern.
Blueprint.
I asked Howard because, listen, he's getting older, right? And that, king of all media crown will soon be vacant. Does Charlamagne Tha God has his eye on that?
Honestly, I really, truly do not care about stuff like that because, Howard Stern will tell you that his greatest inspiration was P.D. Green. P.D. Green is who influenced, Howard Stern. So if Howard Stern is the king of all media, then, what was P.D. Green? P.D. Green had his radio show. P.D. Green had his television show, which Howard Stern was a guest on, back in the day. And, Howard, I definitely appreciate Howard. But when you say king of all media, king of what media? Is Howard the king of radio? Yeah, for sure, right? But media has evolved a lot. You got a lot of different kings in their various media spaces. Somebody like Kai Cenat is a king in the streaming media space. Somebody like Joe Rogan is a king in the the podcast space, right? Like radio, there's kings and queens in radio. So there's a lot of different media kings and queens out here. I think everybody has a crown. Everybody has their kingdom. Everybody has their I guess followers, if you want to call it that. So, yeah, I'm not looking to replace nobody, man. I don't have to. Like that's another misconception that we have. I don't have to fill anybody's shoes. I don't have to wear anybody's crown. I'm building my own.
Yeah, love it, man. Well, listen, right fast, take me on the inside of Charlamagne Inc., right? You have your iHeart deal. Your podcast network, from what I'm seeing, you're a 51% owner in that podcast network.
51%,
joint venture with iHeart. What's going on with the podcast network, man? How you liking that? What's inside that business? How are you able to run it, and what are you learning?
I love it. 5 years ago, well, speaking of Combat Jack, I was always a equity owner in a loudspeaker network. So it was me, Combat Jack, and my man Chris Moreau. And I credit Chris a lot because Chris told me 13 years ago, 2 things you're going to have to do is write a book and start a podcast. I always knew I was going to write a book just because I love reading, I love writing. That was a no-brainer. But podcasting, I was a little arrogant on it. I was like, why I got to do a podcast? I do morning radio. And he was like, I'm telling you, this is where the culture is going. This is where media is going. And I started to think about it. I'm like, I have been fired from radio 4 times. So it would be cool to have my own platform. And, just in case this Breakfast Club thing don't work out, at least I still have a voice. And so that's when me and Andrew Schultz started Brilliant Idiots, 13 years ago. And then, helping Loudspeaker go out there and get, other talent and bring them on the network. Chris gave me equity in Loudspeaker. So I always saw how the podcast business was growing, not just being in front of the microphone, but behind the scenes as well. And so when I started to look at like what Bill Simmons was doing with the Ringer, and I was looking at like the Barstools and the Gimlets and Wonderies and all of these different platforms, I was like, yo, we don't have a space like that for us.
Right, like a BET for podcasts.
And that's exactly what my mentality was. Like I want to create the BET, for podcasting. Because the other thing I was seeing was like, you had so many podcasts out there with black hosts, but they were kind of like more focused on video than they were audio. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that they were necessarily connecting the dots the way that they could as far as the advertising dollars are concerned. And so when I was looking at, doing my new deal with iHeart, I was like, yeah, I don't want to just be talent anymore. Like I want to create this podcast network.
Is this you growing into, I remember 2018, I believe you wanted to podcast with Torre, and you were mentioning how Steve Harvey, Ryan Seacrest were your inspirations. You wanted to get into the executive producer lane, right? That was years ago. You're now in that, right?
Fully.
Is this where you wanted to be? Is this where you are?
Fully immersed in it. Been there for the last 5 years, whether it's executive producing, movies, like my own television shows on Comedy Central, executive producing, audio scripted content with the company that me and Kevin Hart got with SPH Productions, executive producing these, podcasts that we got on Black Effect. Like, the name of the game is IP. So I'm fully immersed in my executive producer bag. But, it all starts with the Black Effect Podcast Network. Being successful at that, showed people like, oh, okay, he does know what he's doing, in the business space. But, I can't take, all of the credit at all. Like, my good sister, Dolly Bishop, who is the president of the Black Effect Podcast Network, man, once again, divine, right? Mm-hmm. When I had the vision for this, God told me immediately, all right, go get Dolly. You know what I'm saying? Go get Dolly. Dolly's great with talent. Dolly's great at business. Dolly has been, a manager, an assistant, and a producer, for different television shows, for different artists. She would know how to put all of this together. And I remember calling her and saying, I want to start this podcast network. She's like, okay, put me on the podcast. What is podcasting? Had that one conversation with her, and we've been off and running ever since. Now we're, 1 billion plus downloads, so many different advertisers and sponsors, 60 plus podcasts 5 years later. And I dare say we are the premier, network for Black podcasting, and one of the, biggest podcast networks out, period.
Yeah, love it, man. Well, you mentioned Dolly, right? And I wanted to ask you, how do you look at building a team? Because you go back into your past when you hired Wendy Williams' husband to be your manager, Kevin, Hunter, and you couldn't find a job with him as your manager, right? Or in New York, and they were like, no. So what did you learn about building a team? Because obviously now, and with that situation, how one person on your team can hurt an opportunity.
I didn't hire him to be my manager. He just took that upon himself.
Well, he was your manager, right?
Yeah, because they're the ones who put me in that position. Yeah. So of course, yes, he was representing me. But that definitely grew sour. But sometimes you don't pick a team; your team picks you. Like my great business partner Karen, she don't like to even have her name called, but she reached out to me, and that's so funny to watch how that works, because the person who put the Breakfast Club together, my man G-Spin, G-Spin and Karen are first cousins. I never knew that, and he never said that to me in any way, shape, or form. Like, she reached out without even hitting him up. Like, that was just a cold call that turned out to be, probably my most fruitful, business relationship, period. That's led to, everything else that's currently happening. So, sometimes like I said, you don't pick your team. Sometimes your team picks you. Like, me and Dolly were just friends. Like, she worked at Viacom when Paramount was Viacom, and she was up there working on Wildin' Out, and I'm up there working on, all my different shows, from Guy Code to Girl Code, and my TV show Uncommon Sense. And I would just literally go sit in her editing bay while she was editing Wildin' Out. Not even just to learn, just like, oh, that's Dolly. You know how sometimes your energy connects with a person, and we would just literally just be sitting in there kicking it. And then, next thing I know, we spending New Year's together, her and my wife and our families, and we vacationing together, and all of these years later, a decade plus, like, that's just my friend, and so I just knew, because I do learn from other people, right? Like, I look at institutions like Rock Nation, and I look at how somebody like Jay-Z has his business structured, and he got his, longtime friend who's more than capable of running everything, Desiree Perez, right? But then you also look, Jay got his whole family working up there at Rock Nation, his sisters and, his nephews, and everybody's up there. And I always just thought that was dope, to be able to create something where all your family, all your friends can, be a part of. And so it's just like, I always knew when I create whatever that institution is going to be, somebody like Dolly is going to run it. And that's exactly what happened. So long before I even knew what it was going to be, I knew that she would be somebody who would run it.
Yeah, I love it, man. Get you out of here on some fun things before I do. Charlamagne's top advice to building a business empire.
My top advice to building a business empire would be the same advice I tell people in life. Keep God first, stay humble, and keep working. Yeah. And, make sure that you have a real intention behind what it is that you want to do. Like, being famous is not an intention. Getting money is not an intention. Like what is this business, how is this business going to serve people? Like, what is the purpose of this business? Like, I think a lot of times, a lot of people are just doing things out here with no purpose. You know what I mean? And I think that that's something that's really causing things to feel very, soulless nowadays. Like, they don't even, everything is one big reality show, and we're all extras in somebody's reality show. You might walk out.
You got the cameras rolling all the time.
You got the cameras rolling all the time. You might walk outside right now, and somebody's gonna see you and be like, "Oh, yeah, he's about to star in my video."
Well, I walk beside you so you can get all the attention, and I can get on the subway, right? I can get out of here. There's Charlamagne, and I can sneak right on by. That's one of the things I don't like. I can still ride the subway in peace. When you get to somebody like yourself, you can't ride the subway in peace, right? Or can you?
It depends. It depends.
Like, hat on and a mask, maybe.
Nah, I think, man, we live in this world where some places I may go and everybody may care, and in some places you may go and don't nobody give a damn.
Nobody care. Yeah.
So to answer your question shortly, keep God first, stay humble, keep working, and make sure that your business has an actual intention.
I love it, man. Now the fun stuff, man. I'm sure you've made $1 million in your career. You had to have made $1 million in your career, right? But let me ask you, what did you spend it on? What did you spend your first $1 million on?
What are you told? Said I made $1 million.
I mean, you own billboards, you got an iHeart, you own 51% of a podcast network, and so I'm assuming.
You're assuming.
Yeah. Okay, I'll ask you. Have you ever made $1 million?
Huh? What you're asking me? What have I ever bought in my life?
What did you spend $1 million on? You think you been spending $1 million on a house? Maybe
I bought a house. I bought a couple of houses, like property. You know what I'm saying? I bought a couple of houses. Yes, I own land in South Carolina. I like to do a lot of philanthropy. One amount that I'm not afraid to ever, share is the money that I've donated to South Carolina State University, because that's my mother's.
How much was it?
Well, it was $250,000, and the only reason I put that out there is because you got to go on the field with the big check, right? And I'll never forget it, because the day that I did it, it was me and OG Jim Clyburn, Congressman Jim Clyburn, and Jim was like, you should go first. And I was like, no, Mr. Clyburn, you go first, age before beauty, some silly joke like that. He was like, no, you should really go first. And I'm like, you should go first. He was like, you should go first, Leonard. And I'm like, all right. So I went out there, the $250,000 check, and I opened up a endowment fund, a scholarship fund, in my mother's maiden name, which is Ford. Because like I said, she went to South Carolina State University. She graduated from there, I think, class of 76, if I'm not mistaken. And so I did that, and then Mr. Clyburn came out there with a check for like $1.5 million or something.
You was just to open an act.
He was like, I told you to go first. I'm like, yeah, I get it. But stuff like that is inspiring, right?
Yeah.
Like I just even saw him, he gave for the honors program, he put 10 people through the honors program this year. Like I just gave out 2 scholarships this year. So it's like things like that is like, that lets me know,
more work to do.
If I had $1 million to give, I would give it to things like that.
Yeah, you do. I know you do. I'm gonna say you do. Look at Outlook, man. Podcast business. We were talking about it as a whole. This is one of the things that I think you are qualified. You're qualified, right, to speak on this, which is when you look at the podcast business as a whole, what does Charlamagne Tha God see? Still a lot of runway ahead of it, oversaturated? What do you see?
No, a lot of runway. I mean, a lot of oversaturation, but also a lot of runway. The reason I don't worry about the oversaturation as much as other people is because the cream always does rise to the top.
Yeah.
And, the podcasts that are actually good, the people who actually have, something to say, those people will be rewarded. Those people will be recognized. People will find you. And the other beautiful thing about the podcast business, the oversaturation usually doesn't last because people don't have the patience
or the time
for this business. Like, there's actual data that shows you it takes 7 years for a podcast to really, really, really take off. When you look at any podcast that's super successful, they've been around for probably 10 years or more. I don't care if it's Joe Rogan, Joe Budden, the Jay Shettys of the world, people like Mel Robbins, they've been around for a while, right? So the time it might take for somebody to be super successful, may shorten just a little bit, but it's still going to take time. A lot of people don't have that time because they're looking around at what everybody's doing, right? They're like, well, this person's making this amount of money, and this person just got a deal for this, and this person's got this amount of audio downloads and this amount of views on YouTube. Why don't I have that yet? They don't usually last. Yeah. So the game kind of just, it kind of just sorts itself out. Yeah. So I think that the oversaturation doesn't bother me. I still think that there's a lot of runway. I think that the game is going to constantly evolve. I think, podcasting is definitely an audio medium. For sure, it's an audio medium. But the same way that radio had to start meeting people where they are, podcasting is going to start having to do the same. Like I said, we had to start taking Breakfast Club and putting it out as a podcast. Then we had to start putting it on YouTube. Then we had to start putting the social media clips out, right? None of that hurt the radio. It just made everything that we were doing bigger. It made the brand of the Breakfast Club bigger. And if you ask me, I think over time it brought more people back to, the radio. You look at somebody like Joe Rogan, his audio numbers are huge. and the video numbers don't hurt because people are watching Joe Rogan on YouTube, and sometimes you might be in your car and want to turn Joe Rogan on and listen. So I think the video component is going to be something that's it's very complementary to what's happening in the audio. That's why I'm interested to see, what happens with Spotify and Netflix, and everything that Bill Simmons and The Ringer is doing with Netflix. I want to see if them being on Netflix, and people being able to access their content there is going to make their audio numbers even bigger, which it probably will.
Yeah. Or you have that same plan? You thinking about taking some of the?
I hope so. I just think it's something that is necessary.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, the same way video complements radio, video will also complement podcasting as well.
Yeah. Biggest money management advice that you can offer somebody?
Save.
That's right.
Save, man. Like I'm not a big spender in no way, shape, or form. I don't have no.
Except for in a nice house, $1 million.
Well, yeah, but that's different, right? That's a house. Like that's something. That's where you go when you lay your head.
So no nice cars, no Lamborghinis, no
hell
Bugattis,
no.
none of that.
Nah, I don't drive no cars that are named after no type of spirits, no ghosts, no phantoms, none of that. Like no, absolutely not. I don't. That's just not my thing because those things depreciate with value, and I've just never been that type of person. And what's so funny? When I didn't have it, I would always say that. I knew that about me. I'd be like, that ain't my style. It's easy to say that when you don't have it to be able to get, but when you actually do have it and you still feel that way, you're not that type. Like I'm a comic book nerd still. Like I go buy comic book paraphernalia and the life-size Thanos hand and, Halloween, because I grew up Jehovah's Witness, we never celebrated Halloween. I'm the guy that'll go buy all the superhero costumes just to dress up as Iron Man or Black Panther for Halloween. Like I'm not into like the big gaudy jewelry and like you said, the Lamborghinis and all that. I'll spend money on experiences. Like I love vacationing. I love taking, my whole family, and it's a party of 6, so that's a lot. So I like taking my whole family, around the world, or being able to go to one of my favorite places on the planet, Anguilla, and rent a couple of villas to have all my family and friends, come. I like doing stuff like that. But as far as like just, out here looking like a rapper, nah.
Yeah. Well, people who do that have made $1 million. Just to let you know.
No, it's no. I budget. I save. I
right.
save.
But what you're saying, renting out villas and private, that sounds like more of a
because
million.
of savings. Because of savings.
You got me. You got me. You might like this one, and I get you 2 more, and you're out of here. But 3 books that inspire you to perform or motivate your best.
In life, or just you said perform? So
perform and motivate you. So put it together.
The autobiography of Malcolm X. My dad gave me that when I was probably whenever the movie came out, like right around the time the movie was coming out. So I might have been 10, 11, something like that. I don't even remember. And that movie, that book and that movie taught me that just evolution is possible. Long before I knew what evolving as a man looked like, I just thought it was dope that this guy, Malcolm Little, did all of this bad, went to jail, and just came out like this new person. I just always felt like that's what life is about. Life is about growth. Life is about, constant evolution. And then, the autobiography of Malcolm X leads you to reading things like The Message to the Black Man, by Elijah Muhammad, which I probably would also put there as my top 2. And then my number 3, I'd probably say The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. So it'd probably be the autobiography of Malcolm X, Message to the Black Man by Elijah Muhammad, and then The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. If I had to give somebody a starter pack and say, read these 3 books, but then I got to put Ryan Holiday, Ego is the Enemy is in there too.
Well, I only said 3. So.
I know, you're right.
Yeah,
but that is a book I give people that book now a lot.
Yeah.
Ryan Holiday, Ego is the Enemy.
I'm surprised you didn't say 48 Laws of Power. It was you. Right, when I was listening to your Breakfast Club interviews way back in the day, who was reading that book, then you and 50 was talking about it, which inspired me to read it. So I'm surprised that wasn't in your...
I read all Robert Greene
Robert Greene is a phenomenal author.
And Ryan Holiday used to be Ryan Holiday used to be Robert Greene's apprentice.
Yeah, there you go.
So Ryan has created, Ego is the Enemy, Obstacle is the Way, Trust Me, I'm Lying, like all of those books like that. But I love Robert Greene's books too. 48 Laws of Power is a very interesting book. But yeah, I love it. But you asked my top
Yeah,
three.
top three. I thought it was going to be before he lost power,
yeah.
but regardless. Finally, man, get you out of here on this. Good to great, man. And I appreciate the conversation. Can sit here and talk to you so much about life, your career, and all of that good stuff. But one of my favorite business books is Jim Collins' Good to Great. So I'll ask you, what's the difference between a good radio/podcast host? Because I think they're both, intertwined at this point. But difference between a good and great radio/podcast host.
A great radio/podcast host knows that there's something new to learn every day. And regardless of, what you accomplish, it could be the Radio Hall of Fame. I'm in the Radio Hall of Fame, nationally syndicated. You might have done interviews that people walk up to you in the street and be like, man, this interview changed my life, whatever. You know that every day you're constantly learning something new. And a great radio personality also knows that, being on that radio is about service to other people. Like when I get on that microphone every day, I say it every morning. I say, thank God for another day of life and another day to serve our beautiful listeners, whether that service is through laughter, whether that service is through, entertainment or education or, inspiring them in some way. I don't care if it's a conversation about mental health. I don't care if we got, a politician on there that's talking about things that are going on, in society right now. Like, you have to get on that radio and serve. Like, what are you pouring into people every single day? And the last thing I will probably say is that a great radio personality is a habit to people. A good radio personality, that person's on, but you're not waking up every morning turning that person on because you want to hear what that individual has to say about something. You're not, getting off work later and putting on that, radio personality's podcast and listening back to the show from that morning because you want to make sure you hear what that person has to say. Like, when you are of service and you are a habit to people and you are constantly learning new things, that is when you are a great radio personality to me. And the other thing I'll add about learning new things, you can't be afraid to be wrong either. I think that's the problem with the world we live in. Everybody wants to be an expert. I'm not an expert at anything. I just got some experiences, and I choose to share those experiences with other people. And, when experts come on and, they school me to something, I don't got no problem saying I'm wrong, and I don't got no problem saying, hey, you taught me something today. Yeah. That, to me, is what makes you a great radio personality.
Love it. Charlamagne Tha God, appreciate all the time, my brother. Absolutely, man. Yes, Congratulations, too, man, Absolutely. On the podcast network, on the new deal with iHeart. Definitely looking to see what you got in store on the production front, man. So definitely look out, man, and make sure I support.
Thank you, brother.
Appreciate it. Charlamagne Tha God here at the Nasdaq. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.